The mass revolt against the CDC, Dr. Fauci, and the administration is no longer partisan. Just a few minutes ago, the CDC voted to recommend all children aged 5 to 11 get COVID boosters. Yet 71% of those kids, 5 to 11, don't even have their first shots. 71% of parents openly defy the CDC and its guidance. Yet the CDC is doubling down on telling America's parents what to do when they've already said no. Clearly, reading the room is not exactly the CDC's strong suit. The same goes for masks. This is a map from the CDC of medium and high-risk cities and counties. Anybody that is not in green, you see all of the Northeast, a lot of Illinois, some of Michigan, some of Florida. Well, according to the CDC, they should have their masks on. That's 1/3 of the American population. Even New York City's mayor told the CDC and its guidance to take a hike, which is kind of funny for a second, but on a deeper level, left or right, wherever you are politically, it is profoundly scary. You might have just heard the United States recorded its first case of monkeypox. It is an incurable virus that kills 1 in every 10 people. The pictures of what it does to you are so disgusting we can't put them on television. There may not be another pandemic, we don't know. We're told it's hard to pass monkeypox from person to person, yet the CDC just said that they were going to buy millions of doses of monkeypox vaccine. The media and CDC and FDA and every politician in America, both left and right, overplayed COVID. And these are the consequences. Nobody trusts them. We trust Eric Erickson, longtime radio host, with us now. It's almost remarkable that as it's apparent that literally lots of Democrats are saying to the CDC, no thanks, that you get another virus that we really need the CDC on.
Yeah, and listen, this really isn't a partisan issue. Government itself is losing the trust of the people, something a lot of conservatives have complained about, and it's nice to have more progressive voices across America now joining. The CDC and the FDA forgot what their place was. They became very institutionalized, bureaucratic, and also partisan. And so people lost trust. They never had the humility to explain why they changed their opinions, nor did they have the humility to admit when they were wrong. As a result, people stopped trusting them. There was a time in America during the beginning of the pandemic where they were telling people don't buy masks. And it turns out they were telling people not to buy masks, not because they didn't think people would need them, but because they were afraid people would rush out and get them before first responders could get them. They were never honest about it. And then, of course, the guidance changed and suddenly they wanted you to be in masks and they couldn't recognize the dishonesty and the excuse making to begin with. And without any humility, people aren't going to trust them. I mean, for God's sakes, Leland, I had cookie dough earlier today with my kid. According to the CDC, I'm going to die any time tonight.
Yeah, if it was raw cookie dough. It was pretty good. Chocolate chip?
Chocolate chip. It was Toll House.
Oh, that's the best stuff going. I like it with Lux chocolate chips, but I digress. But I'm still trying to understand the cognitive disconnects that happen now. U.S. buys millions of monkeypox vaccines as Massachusetts man infected. We understand there may be another case in New York, and yet the CDC comes out and says, oh, gee, don't worry, it's very hard to transmit monkeypox. We were also was told in the beginning it was very hard to transmit COVID as well. I'm wondering how we come back to the trust that we need, especially in a time like this.
First of all, I think you've got to purge leadership. Honestly, people need to lose their jobs at the CDC and the FDA because it's also, we've got the baby formula shortage. Right. Because the FDA dragged their feet and then couldn't correct and now won't waive regulations to get things going again that they could. You've got to start with new leadership at both organizations. Rochelle Walensky at the CDC probably needs to go. Frankly, Delorio at the FDA probably needs to go as well. These institutions have lost the trust of both sides of the aisle. The problem is that people who get appointed to these positions tend to be political apparatchiks, not necessarily experts. And as a result, they've got political backing in Washington, D.C. It's time to start severing ties with these people.
Somehow it's become political. And obviously that happened at the beginning of the pandemic, and no one seems to have been able to even come back from that. Here's Marco Rubio and Dr. Fauci just a couple of days ago.
Are we at a point now where American citizens should be allowed to return to their country without testing negative?
I'm not. Thank you for the question. It's an important question. I don't have the answer to that. I think the idea of having an immigration issue mixed with a public health issue for the general population, I think those probably should be separated.
Well, except they're interrelated because they're both involve groups of people entering the United States. One group is citizens of the country entering legally. The other group, frankly, are people that are not entering legally. The group that's not entering legally, even if they test positive, if they're even tested, get to stay. The American citizen can't re-enter their own country.
Okay.
Right. Well, and this is exactly what we're talking about here. Dr. Fauci is a public health expert. He's not an immigration expert. And yet he has tried to weave public health into all aspects of our lives without the humility to restrain himself and say, I shouldn't be commenting on this, or in fact, to recognize there actually are political and economic ramifications for decisions. And he covers public health, but there are also economists in the room who need to decide, is the cost benefit analysis worth it for what it's going to do to people out of work, the rise in suicides? And yet the media and the government both have decided to put these public health experts at the forefront to answer all of these questions. And I think some of them are having trouble releasing the spotlight and going back to the office. Rome survived all of its crises because it had a brilliant bureaucracy that knew its place, kept its head down and worked. And our bureaucrats want their 15 minutes of fame right now. And so nobody trusts them.
Right. If you want the fame, inherently, everybody jumps the shark at some point. Every television show has. Is the pandemic over? 31% say yes. 55% of the unvaxxed say yes. 22% of those vaccinated say yes. I go back to this issue, though, about 71% of parents are telling the CDC to fly a kite, and the CDC saying, no, we're right. And the issue of monkeypox, if there's not going to be a clearing of the decks, is there a way to come back to trusting what information we get about a disease that kills 1 in 10 people?
Being very forthright up front, and when they get it wrong, saying they made a mistake is one way to do it. Parents right now, I think they're right. If your kid is 5 to 11, if they get COVID, the risks, even the symptoms, are not going to be there. So being panicked about one thing probably discredits them in these other things when their panic isn't reasonable.
Yeah, and you think about it, I remember talking to a number of people, I don't know if it was you included, but just how well the CDC, Dr. Fauci, and everybody else had handled Ebola
right.
just a few years before, with the exact kind of sort of humility and honesty you're talking about. Hey, it was great to see you, Eric, as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you soon. Hopefully have some Toll House cookie dough between now and then. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.